recently when I was at Harvard Business School with 144 other entrepreneurs who ran very successful businesses valued from $100 million upwards of $4 billion, there was one thing everybody had in common. When we were off and we were talking and we were just chatting with each other, everyone had a horror story. Everybody had a story of how close they were of going out of business. When I tell you everybody, I mean everybody had a horror story. Or at one point they did and they had to make a comeback. Every single person. I will tell you here for you watching, if you have any aspirations of running a very successful business one day or being very successful as an entrepreneur yourself, you need to know that it is guaranteed you will face some scary moments in business. And you can't overcome them. And that is when we really find out what you're really made up of. That's when everybody finds out what you're made up of, just so you know that. Anybody that you meet that's successful is able to face those horror stories and overcome them and win. So I'm going to share with you a few of my horror stories, and hopefully, this will shed some light to you to realize you're not alone by yourself, and other people go through this as well. Most of them, it'll be a few experiences I've had. I think it's like 11 or 12 of them that I've personally experienced. One of them will be this. I think one of the scariest things in business is when you declare your intentions to the world that you're starting a business, and you have opposition 100%. No one believes you're going to be successful in business. Why? Because you've never ran a business before. Why would they believe you're going to be successful in business? And what I call this experience is the I told you so nightmare. Let me tell you what's the I told you so nightmare. I cannot tell you how many nights I went to sleep, sleepless nights. I would have nightmares about those people that told me not to do it, and I'm facing them and they're telling me, I told you so. I told you should have never done this. I told you this isn't going to work out. I told you so. Ooh, those nightmares were unbelievably painful, let me tell you. And these I told you so faces, some of them were relatives, some of them were friends, some of them were enemies who said, I told you so. And I'd wake up in the middle of the night. I can't say how many times. My entire shirt is wet. I'm in bed and had to go to a bathroom and splash some cold water on my face. And I'm just like, it's just a nightmare. It's just a nightmare. It's just a nightmare. It's okay. It's okay. Go back to sleep. Try going back to sleep. I can't do that. I have to get to work because I'm thinking I'm about to go out of business because someone's going to tell me I told you so. It's a very scary moment in business. You will experience many of that. It's going to happen, but it's just a part of imagination. It's not a reality, but it's going to mess with you. Another one is this. Here's another one. Another one is when you actually start partnering up with a company. I remember one time they hired me, a startup hired me. They did technology products, which was like the next up and coming Yahoo, and they were based out of Santa Ana. They hired me to train their salespeople, and I came through and I brought on board 100 salespeople that was a training in the Southern California marketplace. And I'll never forget, on a Monday morning, I'm going there to collect all the checks to come and do a sales rally and give these checks away to the salespeople. And Monday morning, I'm going up the elevator with the president, a guy named Ray at that time. I'm going upstairs. We knock on the door. He puts the key in to open the headquarters. He can't open it. Janitor comes and says they pulled everything out over the weekend. I'm like, what are you talking about? We open it. It was as if everything was slow motion. The door opens like a movie. Ta, 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 ta. Everything was pulled out except the logo. I said, wait a minute, why is it? Everything was pulled out. Every check that was uncashed, every check that was sitting on the table to deliver to our sales force, we went to the nearest bank, nothing could be cashed. They closed down the checking account. It was done. We couldn't get a hold of the investor. We couldn't get a hold of the founder. We couldn't get a hold of nobody with that company. 6 months, went out of business. That night, I had to go to Conrad's in La Crescenta Valley, and I had to deliver the fact that that company went out of business in front of 100 people. Let me tell you, that drive back from Santa Ana to Crescenta Valley with traffic, which is about a 2.5 hour, 3 hour drive, was a very difficult Monday night drive. And I met with them. Some of you may even watch this, may share it with somebody who was part of that meeting. That was not an easy meeting. But I had that night, if there's anything I learned that night is, I learned how to toughen up and learn to deliver bad news. And I had to make myself, you think this is bad news? What's bad news compared to this is if you're in the military and if you have to go tell somebody's wife with 2 kids saying their husband just passed away, that's bad news. Yours isn't that bad of a news. I had to go and deliver that news, and difficult time sleeping that night. I felt responsibility. I felt it was my fault, etc., etc. But I grew from that moment, delivering bad news to a company that went out of business. Another scary moment is when you run out of money. I want you to think about this here. Imagine you start a company with every single penny you have, everything from your insurance policies, from mutual fund stocks, cash, savings, money fund accounts, any money market accounts, anything you can think about. Let's just say you have $1 million. You start this company. 6 months later, you're down to $500,000. 9 months later, you're down to $100,000. 12 months later, you're down to $13,000. You literally have nothing left. Every credit card's been maxed out, and you only have $13,000 left. And by the end of the week, all your employees, your sales reps, your vendors, everybody expecting a payment from you. And if you don't pay them, they're gonna leave you. And if you do pay them, you're out of business. You don't have money to pay your rent, food, anything. What do? Do you panic? What do you do at that moment? See, I experienced that. I experienced that in October of 2010. And let me tell you, it was very scary. Very, very scary. And you realize what things you need to do at a moment like the last thing you can do is just panic. You need to figure out the next steps on what to do. But that is a very scary moment in business that could happen. And you have to still figure out a way to get out of a situation like that, which we ended up getting out of it and good things started happening. Another thing is a scary moment is when you start a company, it's a startup, and you don't speak the language of a company. You don't speak the language of a startup. So I remember the first time we started our insurance company, PHP, and I have no carriers. I have no insurance company to write their paper up. None. None of them have said yes to me. Every one of them I met when I spoke to, they said no to me because they said, how long have you been around? I said, 1 week. They said, no. So one guy I got on a call with, he finally said, yeah, who are you with? Let's meet in the next 2 months. I said, no. I'd like to meet with you today or tomorrow. I'm in LA. He's in Chicago. He says, oh, you're in town? I said, oh, yeah. He says, okay, if you're around tomorrow, why don't we do lunch tomorrow at 12 o'clock? I said, no problem. I get a flight that night, $1,200 flight to go to Chicago from LA. I go to Chicago, 12 o'clock, I go to meet him. This man's name is Garth. I shake his hand, we go upstairs. 1 hour we speak. 1 hour later, I'm leaving. I have no idea what he's talking about. Half the words he's asking me, I don't know a lot of the languages that he's asking me these questions of. I'm just having a very sincere meeting with him. He says, here's what we're gonna do. Here's what's gonna happen with our business. He shakes my hand. This is a multi-billion dollar company. He says, we'll give you the contract. Let's get the paperwork started. Right there, I'm like, wait a minute. This is really happening. Yes, it is. I left trying to control my emotions on how excited I was, as if everything was expectant. And I go downstairs. I'm like, oh my gosh. I cannot believe I was able to get this appointment and close it without knowing half the words he asked me on what it is to run a startup. Because we had, now, do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have this? Who's your general counsel, legal counsel, accountant? Are you crude? Are you this? Are you that? What's your vector? Everything he was, had no idea. So sometimes scary thing is you go into a meeting that the meeting's bigger than you. How do you handle a meeting like that? You're going to experience some of those as well. Next one was final straw of negotiation. Let me explain to what I mean by this. This is when you're negotiating with somebody and you do not have the leverage over the other company. So it is August of 2011. Think about this. August of 2011. We're about to go out of business. PHP. We're about to go out of business. August of 2011. Nobody knows this. I have no carriers. No carriers. One of our competitors was going around, defamation of character, whatever you want to call it. They were trying to do whatever they can for every single carrier to stop representing us. Everyone dropped. Everyone said, okay, we're not doing business with them. Except for one company, and it was AIG. It was a gentleman named Greg. I met together with Greg. We had already known each other, and we started talking. I had no leverage. We're not doing nothing. We have nothing going on at that time. And he and I sat down, and we had a long conversation together. Then the next level, and I flew in, and we had meetings, long meetings with AIG. And then by the time we were done, they said yes. I had zero leverage in that negotiation. It's the final straw. If they say no, next week, we're out of business, okay? Next week, we're out of business. They said yes. I went back. I announced it for the first 90 days. It was absolutely terrible. Nothing went the right way. And then eventually, we ended up writing more Index Universal Life with AIG 3-4 years in a row than any other company in the world. And it turned into a very, very successful relationship. But I had no negotiation leverage when I was negotiating with these guys at that time. Next one is when a big client changes their mind. This happens in sales a lot. For me, it happened early on in my sales career. When I quit my job and I went in, I remember I had a sales that I made. The sales call I made, the commission was $11,000. $11,000 at that time was a lot of money. $11,000 was a lot of money to me, because that $11,000, I was already counting my rent, my car payment, my debt, my phone, every single thing you can. I would back in the days, Nextel, the way Nextel worked, I was $890. I had to pay that off. Everything I was behind. So I'm counting on this $11,000 check. I leave the house. I'm so excited. I'm relieved. I got breathing room again. I go in excited the next day, and then all of a sudden, I get a call from a client. And you know you don't want to pick up that call because you know exactly who it is. I pick up the client's call. They want to change their mind. What happened? We just want to change our mind. What happened? My cousin, who does the same thing you do, he's with the same company you're with. We didn't know he was with the same company you're with. We called him for advice because we know he was in the insurance business. We have chosen to go ride with him. But we totally understand. We know what you're going to say. And his cousin prepped him on everything I was going to say, so I have no comeback. $11,000 was a lot of money. Let me tell you, it almost put me out of business. It was a very, very scary moment that day as well. Another one is when a big player, executive, salesperson, staff member of your company leaves. And it totally disrupts your business. I've experienced that before. In the last 15 years of being in business, I've experienced that a few times. And every time it's happened, it's been a disruption. And every single time it happens, you think you won't be able to handle it. But every single time it's been handled. But it has happened. When it does and you're in the moment, it's never fun to experience when you lose a great teammate. Another one is a lawsuit. Listen, lawsuits happen in business. When you run a business, you do not want to experience lawsuits, but sometimes lawsuits happen, especially the bigger you get. And one time we experienced a lawsuit that was a 400-page lawsuit. I will never forget this 400-page lawsuit that came in. And they sued me, the company, 7 of my team members. They wanted to do whatever they could to put us out of business. And that was a scary moment. When FedEx brings you a box this big and you open it up and it's a lawsuit from a $400 billion company, let me tell you, you need to realize that at that moment, they can do every single thing they want to put you out of business, but they can't do anything to stop you from working. And that was the biggest edge. Anybody can sue anybody, but nobody can stop you from working. Especially in our country. Maybe some other countries they can. You cannot stop the person from working, so you need to get back to work. Another one is when an investor backs out. Some people have a startup company. An investor one day says, we no longer want to participate with your company. That happens many times to many people where an investor pulls out. When it happens, you got to pivot. And it can be scary sometimes, especially if you have some money that you need to be paying people. It can be scary things that can happen at times, but you got to figure out a way to pivot with that. Another one is when your partner changes their mind. I had this experience with me 7 years ago, I want to say. And this was actually a good friend at that time. And we were starting a business. And when we were starting a business, we started off, and I'll never forget, we're at his house, 4 o'clock, 6 months we've been talking about this. He's excited in the basement. He's shaking my hand. I give you my word. I give you my word. We're going to do this and we're going to No problem. Wake up, fired up. Comes in town, fired up. Everywhere we go, he's excited. The night before when I talked to him, he had a change of heart. And it threw me off tremendously the night before. And it was one of the best things that happened because I learned that at that moment, you don't necessarily know if everybody has the courage to go and do something like this. And this person did not have the courage to go do something like this. And a big part of the funds that at that time we were counting on was going to be a 50-50 opportunity for both. When he pulled out, it threw me off tremendously. And I almost didn't make the decision because my decision was almost controlled by his fear. And if I would have said no, that means I made my decision based on him. And I can't control his fears. He has to live with his fears. When he's 80 years old, for the next 30, 40, 50, 60 years, he has to live with the decision that he made. And even though it may be a decision publicly where people will say you made the right decision, deep down inside, he has to know, with having access to all the information, no matter how much he convinces himself, he knows what type of a decision he made. I moved on. But that is not an easy decision when that happens. But it will happen in business. You can't take it personally. You got to move on. It's business. These types of things will happen in business. You still need to move on. It happens in sports all the time. Westbrook, Durant. It happens in sports all the time with Shaq and Kobe. It's happened in so many different platforms. You got to be able to stand up and still go out there and win regardless of what takes place. And last but not least, when things happen that you can't control. I got started in the financial industry with Morgan Stanley Deanwood on 9/10. Excited. Next day's 9/11. I can't control 9/11 from happening. No one wanted to invest for 3 years. No one. Everybody I sat with, oh, we don't know how the market's going to do because we're afraid that war is still going on. Oh, we don't know what's going to happen to the market. We've taken every single penny out of a stock market. We're not going to know what's going to happen with it. Oh, we're not going to. Oh, we're not investing. Oh, we're not doing it. We're staying cash right now. Oh, we're not. Everything was cash, and I'm starving for 3 years. Everything was cash. Everything was cash. And try to figure it out during that time. It's not something I control. It's something that was happening in the market. I still stuck around, and I saw 95% of my peers who got licensed their Series 7 during that time. They quit. They were probably smart at that time for doing it. But I had the courage to stick around, and I didn't want to give up because eventually I thought something good was going to happen, and it ended up happening. So every one of these stories I'm telling you, I'm not telling you these stories with the intentions of scaring you. This is not an intention for me to scare you or tell you for you to, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can handle going and becoming a sales guy for a company or a executive or part owner or an equity owner or an entrepreneur, whatever it is. Not at all. I just want you to know that this is normal. I know this sounds crazy, but this is normal. And this is where your defining moment happens. This is when you learn about yourself. This is when you go home at night and you kind of experience what cold feet is all about. This is when you go home at night and you tell yourself, I made the wrong decision. I should have never done it. That person was right. I told you so was right. Whoever that I told you so is. These are the moments where you become the person that everybody looks up and you become the example to everybody else. Or you become a statistic that allowed fear and any of these horror type of situations that are temporary get you to go out there and quit and not become an entrepreneur. You're going to have to make that decision for yourself. I won't have to. You're going to have to do it. The good news is, for the most part, there's a way out. For the most part, there's a way out when you're experiencing these types of things that happen in business. So anyways, with that being said, Paul, go grab my pillow for me, buddy. I know you got Paula sitting there comfortably. We got an exciting project that's coming up for Paul here. Okay, here we go. Hey, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so. By the way, those videos you guys have made, Why I Love Valuetainment, with all the impersonations. Today's the last day to submit. Your videos are hilarious, some of you that I've posted. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go on YouTube and type in Why I Love Valuetainment. You'll see a bunch of funny videos. People are impersonating me. One person said I'm a combination of, you just got to see how they're impersonating me and who they say I remind them of. So, but if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so. Our goal is to get 250,000 subs next. We just crossed 100,000 subs. And if you got any questions or any stories about the scariest moments you've ever had in your career, please comment on the bottom. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.